monthly fundraiser. And this evening, we are having Crystal I of Salem, a 3 years clean, be our speaker. You want to help me welcome Crystal?
Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm an addict. Thanks for having me speak, you guys. I really appreciate it. Really honored. Also honored to be here on Ian's 3 years. I'm really glad that you could be here tonight. And so, is it actually today? That's awesome. My only thing with you, Ian, is just I wish I saw more of you, and I'm just so glad that you could be here tonight and take a key tag. I know you work a lot, so how special for you to be able to celebrate your birthday in a meeting. So happy birthday. So I've done, this is my third speaker meeting, and I am going to take a little bit of a different approach than what I did in my last two speaker meetings, which I kind of just did like a timeline of my life and kind of how I got here. And I guess tonight I really just want to start with my recovery and the stuff that I'm doing for my recovery today. So, man, sometimes I feel like it's a laundry list of things I do for my recovery, but I try and do a lot because I hear that everything is important. And to be honest, I don't really know like what's keeping me clean today. It could be all the things together. It could be, I just don't know. So I just keep doing a lot of things. I have a home group. I'm involved in my home group. I have a position. I serve on hospitals and institutions. I have committed to one institution that I go into regularly, and I have a position at Area. I'm our literature chair until September. What else do I do? I'm in a tradition study right now with some women. I attend meetings regularly, and most importantly, I have a sponsor and I work the steps. And so I think I want to share about some lessons I've learned in recovery, because they've been good lessons to learn, and some of them I had to learn the incorrect way, or I had to learn by doing it incorrectly. So I think I'm going to share about those. So like I said, the most important thing I do is I have a sponsor and I work the steps, and my sponsor is Abby in the back there with her cute little baby puppy. Just like, look at him, he's so cute right now. And I'm sure Abby's heard this story a lot, and you know it obviously, but Abby was not my first sponsor. And I learned a big lesson through becoming her sponsee. So my first sponsor, I worked steps 1 through 5 with her out of the flat book. And after I shared my my fourth step, I think it was like just a couple of days later, she texted me and said that she was going to make some choices that she felt she couldn't be my sponsor anymore after making some of those choices. She was going to kind of leave the program. And I remember being really distraught about that. Like, this is someone who I just trusted with my fourth step like 2 days prior. And I was like, fuck, was it my fourth step? Like, was it so bad that she has to leave the program? I of course just flipped it on me. Like, oh, woe is me. And that wasn't it at all. But she was really responsible, and she said, my sponsor is willing to take you on so you aren't just left hanging dry. And her sponsor was Abby. So I met with Abby for coffee, and I knew right away that I wanted her to be my sponsor. And Abby picked up right where I left off with my former sponsor, and we're just finishing up a second set of steps. And so that was a big lesson for me, and the fact that I have no idea what's going on in my life, and that's okay because I'm taken care of. And that was my higher power working through someone else to therefore work through me. So that was a big lesson that I got to learn, and I'm really blessed to have gotten through that clean as well. So that was a positive lesson that I learned. It has to do with steps. I have learned maybe a negative lesson working steps. I was invited to join a step study with some women, it might have been last year or something, and I was really excited to do that. I was really honored to be part of that. I was a little nervous to be working steps with a group of women, but I said yes. I prayed about it and I said yes. And it was a very negative experience for me, based on many factors, and that's not really the point of the story here, but the point is that I was really stressed during that time, and I remember talking to Abby about it. I remember reaching out to some other women as well. I remember one night I just decided that I was going to just reach out to some women, so I just went through my phone, because when I first got here, what I did when I got a phone list was I put everyone in my phone as Susie SOS or Kathy SOS, whatever another girl's name is, Jill SOS, even though the program is not affiliated with SOS, but that's just the first thing in my mind that I did. So what I did was I just searched SOS in my phone, and all these women came up, and that saved my butt, because I didn't have to do any thinking about like what are people's first names. I was just easily able to get to people who were in the program and who had said that I could reach out to them. So I started calling women. I just kept calling, and the women I were calling were women that I had heard in meetings just share with confidence that I knew that I could reach out to them about the fact that I was really struggling with this super stressful situation. I didn't really want to back out of the commitment, because I don't like not doing that. I don't like not sticking to my commitments. And I finally got a hold of a woman who I really greatly admire, and she kind of led me through the experience. I called her every time I met at that step study, every time before, and then I'd do the step study, and it'd be really stressful. There was yelling and screaming. It was not spiritual at all. And then I'd call that woman afterwards, and she kind of helped me through that process. And she said, if you're gonna leave, just leave with grace. Don't blow up. Don't say, you guys all suck, this is like the worst thing I've ever done. Just leave with grace, and that phrase really stuck with me. And I did decide to leave that step study because it was not positive for me, but I was able to leave with grace, and I can look back at that experience, and like all those women I still say hi to at meetings. There's no animosity, there's no bad blood, and I'm really glad that I left that way and not a negative way. So that was kind of a lesson for me in reaching out to women, and just reaching out to women, and listening to women in meetings, listening to them share, and like actively listening to their share can help me later on down the road. There are a lot of women who I've heard their stories, and when I look at women, I think that person, I can call them if I'm struggling with this or with this other thing. Like, I'm really actively listening when I'm in a meeting, and so I'm able to reach out to the appropriate woman who I think can best help me. So that was a really big lesson that I learned. But I've gotten a lot of help from men in this program too, and I think this program says women helping women and men helping men, but I've really gotten a lot of help from men in this program. I've had men pull me aside after meetings and tell me that I've said clean and sober in a meeting, and do I understand the clarity statement? And I've been like, what's the clarity statement? Like, I don't know what that is. And this guy was like, well, it's that nice little thing that we read in a meeting that says to basically not say clean and sober. It says just to stick with the words of addiction. And I'm like, oh, I guess I didn't hear that, and he was able to pull me aside and lead me through that. He didn't call me out in the middle of the meeting. He just nicely pulled me aside. I've had men who have pulled me aside and given me suggestions for how to handle situations better, such as when a meeting's really loud and I really just want to tell people to shut the fuck up. That's not appropriate. And a big lesson I learned was I was chairing a meeting for my home group. I must have had I was early recovery, maybe like 6 months clean, and there was this group of girls in the back, and they were being so loud, and I just couldn't take anymore. So I probably in the middle of someone's share, I just said, you guys need to shut the fuck up. Like, there's a fucking meeting fucking going on. So fucking, like, it was really negative. And they were like, oh, and they might have left. I don't really remember, but someone pulled me aside later and said, that's really not how we should do that. And you could maybe have taken a moment of silence in the meeting or done this. And that person gave me a lot of suggestions. And so that's what I do now. But what's funny is I was in a women's meeting, and this wasn't that long ago. I don't know how long ago. It wasn't that long ago. And this woman who I know wanted to introduce me to her friend, who I've never seen before in my whole life, in my whole time here. I had no idea who she was. She looked new to me. And this girl was like, hey, Crystal, I want you to meet my friend, like, Susie. And I was like, oh, hey, Susie, like, I'm Crystal. It's so nice to meet you. And I gave her a hug. And she goes, I know who you are. You're the girl who told those women to shut the fuck up in a meeting. And this was like 2 years later. And I just was like, Ida, yeah. Well, it's really nice to meet you. Like, see you later. And that was like really embarrassing for me, especially because I had no idea who this girl was, but she remembered that about me. And that was a big lesson for me in recovery about like what we do in these rooms. Like, people remember that stuff, People remember how you act in certain situations. That's not to say that we can't show and change and better, make better choices. Like, I think I've proven myself to now not do that anymore, but it was a big lesson for me in learning, wow, the things that I do here can really impact people, can really impact the newcomer, can really impact if people want to approach me about things, if people want to reach out to me. So it was a big lesson for me to learn in recovery. What other? I have my little notes here. I wanted to talk about Scott a little bit too. Scott's a big part of my recovery, but I don't really often share about him or us because when I got here to this program, I was kind of told things like, don't get in a relationship your first year. That was the main thing. And I don't even think I had 60 days clean, and Scott did not even have 90 days clean, and we obviously got together, and and we're still together. And I remember people coming up to me and saying, Crystal, are you okay? And me being like, yeah, I'm great. And then being like, no, I see you're with Scott. Like, is everything okay with you? And I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. And I don't know why people, like, multiple people came up, like, phrased it just like that. And I just, and that was okay. I think people are looking out for each other in the program, definitely. And I just don't share about it often because I don't want to share a message where people could get into a relationship and it could be really negative for them. And so I just don't share it very often. But I wanted to touch on some stuff that Scott has taught me in recovery. So there's this, Scott's great with me. There's this thing that we do on vacations where I'm allowed one freak out moment every vacation we take. So if I need to cry in the middle of the airport, like, I'm allowed to do that one time, or whatever. And that's just a rule we made because I just cry a lot and I freak out about things, and like, I'm very like type A personality, and Scott's very like type B, very just chill and laid back. And that's something that we kind of came up with together. Or I probably came up with it. I don't know who came up with it, but and I guess what's cool about that is it allows me to just be human, because I am, and it takes the pressure off of things. And there's been trips where I have not had to use that freak out moment. I think they should roll over to the next year. Like, I think I should have a bank of them. I think I'd have a lot saved up by now. But really, truly, those are the types of things that that Scott and I do for each other. We lift each other up, and we have a really positive relationship. We got to perform in that talent show last night, and the behind the scenes of that was messy, and lots of tears and lots of "you're not doing this right," and then we got up there on stage and we had such a good time. And so maybe the rule should be every time we do anything together, I'm allowed one moment. I don't know, but it's a great relationship, and I'm really thankful for it. And I'm really thankful that people told me to be careful early recovery, because it could have not been this great, But having those things in place, those like kind of funny little things that we do for each other, helps me not focus so much on guilt and shame that I have. And I still have a lot of guilt and shame if I like cry in the middle of the airport. But Scott really, it's okay, you're one time, and it helps me get over stuff faster. So yeah, guilt and shame is it's like in my head I just took this really like negative turn. Guilt and shame is I've overcome a lot of guilt and shame in recovery, and there's still a lot that I feel like I carry around with me about certain things, especially things that I haven't really worked through. Man, when I was in my addiction, I mean, we've all been there, right? We do stuff that we never thought we'd do. And when I was in my addiction, I always thought that I was like not as sick as other people, because I wasn't doing certain things. Like I have all these yets that I haven't done in my addiction. I've never been arrested, never been to jail, never been to treatment, never stuck a needle in my arm. I always had a job, I always had a home, I always had a car. Like I was a functioning addict, so I felt like I wasn't like as sick as other people. And I would judge myself. I'd say, well, I'm the one driving us around, and I'm the one paying for all this stuff, and all y'all are staying under my roof. And I thought I wasn't sick. I felt like I just didn't think I was as bad off as other people. But what I was doing was I was comparing myself to other addicts. I wasn't comparing myself to me as a clean person. And as me as a clean person, I was doing horrible things. Like, I should have been comparing myself to like, what is my potential? And what would I be doing if I were clean right now? It wouldn't be all this stuff. So, but I just couldn't see that in my addiction. And I went to school up in Washington, and that's really where that's really where my addiction was worse, at my at the worst stages. And I have a lot of guilt and shame over how I kept up my addiction when I was up in Washington. I didn't really have a lot of money up there because I was in school, and I was a sugar baby through my last full year of college, and I have a lot of guilt and shame around that, because I don't know, something like it was like planned shit. Like, I was like with people. It was. I still have a lot of images of it. Like, sometimes, I don't know, like, and like maybe you smell something, or like a song comes on the radio and you're like taken back. Like, I still get flashes of that, of being in places with men that were, at least 3 times my age, and just, there was like multiple guys that I was with for a year, like through that year, to keep up my addiction. I'd be all dressed up. My friends would ask me where I was going. Are you going out on a date? And it's like, yeah, something like that. So I have a lot of guilt and shame around that still today, because I haven't really worked on that in my recovery. But there have been a lot of things that I've worked on. I used to have a lot of guilt and shame around my last boyfriend who passed away Brandon James Maddox. I like to say his name so it kind of stays alive. I was pregnant. I have a little girl who's going to be 4 this year. Her name's Charlie, and I was pregnant with her. And Brandon, my boyfriend, was in treatment, and he decided to come home to be with me when I delivered. And so he came home, and we were all kind of worried for him, being home, and he wasn't technically graduated from his treatment yet, and I was overdue, so he was home longer than he really should have been. And I remember him calling me and saying he wanted me to come over, and I was just like, I'm so tired. I'm like 9 and whatever months pregnant. I can't come over tonight. Like, I'll come over in the morning. And he said, okay. And I went over that next morning, and he was gone. I found him, and I had so much guilt and shame over what would have happened if I would have went over that night. What would have happened if I would have got there sooner? What would have happened if I would have had my baby on time, So much guilt and shame. But I did a lot of work around that. I went to counseling. I saw 2 different counselors. One was just like a regular counselor, and one was a PTSD counselor for, kind of seeing that horrific sight of him and everything. And I'm able to talk about that today and feel okay with it. Like, I have positive thoughts in my head now. I don't think, like, why wasn't I there soon enough, or it's all my fault. I don't think negative things like that. I think it was out of my control. And I think it's not my fault. So I was able to work through that stuff. Also able to work through the fact that I gave my daughter up for adoption. It's an open adoption. I get to see her really whenever. I see her about every month and a half. Scott and I see her together, and she's beautiful and wonderful, and she's so cute, and I don't have guilt and shame around that today, because I know I did the right thing based in the situation that was happening at that time. If I got pregnant today, it would be a totally different situation, but at the time I did what was right for me with all the things that I knew. She's so great. She's great. And this program has given me the ability to have a relationship with her today. We get to go camping with her at the end of this month for 2 nights. And it's like, man, I'm going camping for 2 nights with my little girl. Like, that's just, I don't know, it's so cool. Like, sometimes I tell people, I gave Charlie up for adoption, and they get, like, really awkward. Oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, no, like, it's awesome. She just has double the people who love her. She has her adopted family, and she has me, and she has Scott, and she has my parents, and she just has so many people that love her, and she knows that I'm her mom. She just calls me Crystal, but actually I think just a couple weeks ago she asked how she got out of my tummy. That was a little bit awkward. She's only 3.5, so it's like, what do you tell a 3.5-year-old? But recovery has given me the ability to have a wonderful relationship with her, a wonderful relationship with her parents. There's no guilt and shame around that. And recovery has given me so much. I mean, when I think about, people say, I hear this all the time. I hear, if I would have written down a list of things that I wanted, like the first day I came into this program, I would have so much more than that list. And I never made a list, so I don't really know what people are talking about exactly. So it's hard for me to imagine what I was thinking when I first walked through these doors. I was just trying to not use. I was just trying to, like, come back and not, like, fuck things up in between the next meeting. So I wasn't really thinking about goals or anything, but when I reflect and I think about my life compared to what it was and my life now, it's just, it's night and day. I have a great job today. I work here in town doing marketing for an insurance company. I've been there about 3 years, and that's not really, like, insurance isn't my passion at all. It's really boring. But marketing is, and I love reading and writing. I'm a poetry major, and my parents were not happy that I majored in poetry, that's for sure. They're like, that's the worst major you could have chosen. But I love it. And I decided that, I want to start taking baby steps in that direction to get back into the publishing world and industry. And so I'm in insurance right now. So I was like, how do I get to publishing? And I decided I was going to take an internship up in Portland. And it was a really big decision for me. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to work it out with my boss. And he just so graciously gifted me the ability to go take this 6-month internship and still pay me my salary and pay me benefits and stuff while I'm exploring something that has nothing to do with his company. He knows I'm going to probably leave. It's just such a blessing. And he told me it's because I've worked my butt off for 3 years, because I show up on time, because I do my job well. I try really hard. I'm honest. I've made some big mistakes there. Our company was sued for copyright infringement because I used a picture off a website that I didn't pay for. I put it up in quotes. I'm still a little angsty about it. I got it off a royalty-free site and used it on our website, and this dude sued us for $37,000. And my boss kept me on, and we fought it. And so it's I've made some big mistakes there. This guy really shouldn't be breaking his back for me, and he is. And I think about during my addiction, I was the worst employee ever. I was always in the bathroom. I was late. I'd be late, and then I'd be in the bathroom, or I'd just be really I gotta organize this thing over here for 5 hours, and they're that's not what your job is here today. Your job is not to organize that drawer or whatever. And I just be gacking out. So I think about the huge changes that I've done with my job and the blessings that I've received from working really hard. So that's been a huge area of improvement in my recovery. Where am I on time? Okay. Another huge area that I've seen improvement in is my relationship with my parents. I'm an only child, and I've had a tough road with my parents. Being an only child, there's a lot of pressure to just do everything right, or I felt that there was the pressure. There wasn't. I didn't have Jimmy or Bobby, my brothers, next to me kind of softening the blow on things. It was all me, and so there's a lot of pressure, and I was really angry at my parents for a lot of years, and I don't know. I thought that I wasn't a bad person in my addiction. I kind of mentioned that I was a functioning addict, so I always thought that I was not hurting anyone, and especially after I moved home from Washington, I wasn't being a sugar baby. I wasn't doing that stuff anymore. I was just organizing stuff in my house. That's what I was doing. So I thought I wasn't being a bad person. But one thing I did do that I was really ashamed about in my addiction was I would steal stuff from my parents' house pretty regularly, and they're gone a lot. They travel a lot, and I remember being over there one time when they were traveling, and I was looking through one of my mom's closets. She has a purse closet. She just has a lot of purses, and my dad doesn't like them around the house. And I remember I was looking through her purse closet, and I found this wallet full of all this money, and I was I'm just gonna help myself here. So I did, and but I felt really bad about it later, so I went back to replace the money, which is crazy. Who does that? But I did. I went back to replace the money, and when I went back to replace it, there was more money in it. And I was wait a second, this is really weird. Why is there more money in here? So I just took more money, and I kept doing that for months and months, and every time I would go back, sometimes multiple times in 1 week, my parents would be home between trips and stuff, there'd be more money. It's the never-ending wallet of money. And I'm why? This is really tripping me out. Why is there always money in here? I don't get it. And I felt a lot of guilt and shame over that. So when I worked my first set of steps, and I was making my list of people that I owed amends to, my parents were huge. And I got to make amends to my mom. I wrote her a letter, not a super long letter, just to kind of keep me on track when I was talking to her. And I got to apologize for my behavior and my addiction. And I got to admit to the fact that I stole all this money from her. And I was just shaking, like reading this letter. Oh, and I stole the money from the wallet that never ran out, and she's just was probably like, what's going on? But I looked up at her when I finished reading the letter, and she just had all these tears in her eyes, and she just said, I'm so proud of you. And she just hugged me. And that's what she said, and I still don't know how the wallet kept getting full of money. I really need to ask her, maybe. It's just such a mystery. But it was such a relief. It was such a relief. And, my amends with my dad were more emotional than that, because my relationship with him was just more volatile and mean and stuff, and we've never seen eye to eye. And I got to make amends to him as well. I wrote him a letter as well to keep me on track, and I remember just crying. And he's not a big crier, so he didn't cry or anything, but and that doesn't mean, crying does not mean you're feeling more or less than anyone else, but I was crying because I'm a crier. And I looked up at him, and I'll never forget what he said. He just said, Crystal, as a parent, we forget all the bad and we just remember the good. And makes me want to cry right now. I just hugged him, and to make amends to people like that and to have such a positive reaction that's what I needed right then in my program. I have had amends since then that did not go well like that at all. I've had people who have, said I don't want to talk to you anymore, and that's fine. But that's what I needed right then in my program. I really needed those amends, and those were one of the first amends that I did, because I'm my parents' only child. Like, they're gonna love me forever. I could do the worst things in the world, and they would still love me. And that's why I felt comfortable doing those amends first, because I knew that, I didn't know it would go that well, but I just knew that it would be okay. And that was huge for me. It was really special. It's really special. What else am I saying here? Okay. I don't think I'm gonna make it the whole time, guys. Okay. What else has recovery given me? Scott and I are taking a big trip in October. We're going to Iceland. Really excited for 2 weeks. I'm using my rollover trip cries and stuff. That's a long trip. I'm definitely, I think I get like 7 freak out moments. We'll talk about that later, but that's the big thing recovery has given me. Like, we've been saving for a while for that. We kind of made an agreement about how much we were going to set aside each month, and recovery has blessed me with the ability to save money and not have to go steal from this magical wallet, being able to make money on my own, being able to pay my bills every month, being able to pay off debt, and being able to save, and I still live month to month. Like, I get really stressed at the end of the month, but I know that I've done the things I need to do, and that's a big blessing. And I know that I'm saving for things that I don't need to do. We do not need to go to Iceland. We do not need to do half the things that we do, but we get to do them today, and that's really special. Recovery has given me a lot. I just feel really blessed today. I feel really honored to share my story. I hope it was not too scattered. I felt it was a little scattered, but I wanted to take a different approach. I feel like I've shared my story a couple of times. I feel like I've kind of shared what has brought me here, and maybe some people haven't heard that, and you can definitely ask me about it, or, I'm pretty open about it, but I really wanted to focus on my recovery today because that's really what this program is about for me. And it's really about, my recovery is changing every day. Every day I'm learning new things. Every day I'm thinking about new things. I'm a little nervous for my literature position to be up in September because I don't know if I'm supposed to stay still and sit and listen to my higher power, and if I'm just supposed to not fill that spot, or if I'm supposed to instantly fill it with like another service position. And I've been thinking about it a lot. I really need to talk to my sponsor about it. This is probably the first time she's hearing about it, but I really need to talk to Abby about it. And I really need to decide what I'm going to do, but I don't feel super nervous about it because I know that it's going to be okay. And I'm doing so much for my recovery that even if I don't fill that position, I have other stuff that's working for me. I sponsor other women. I do H&I. I have a home group. I'm involved in the community. I go to events. So it feels okay to have something ending because there's all this other stuff that is still going on for me. Anyway, I'll have a cool ending. That's kind of it. Thank you so much for having me.